Mark.
That was perfect.
Thank you, man. Thank you.
I love.
Awesome.
We didn't plan that. That could not have gone better.
Yeah, I mean, it's planning just we're in the moment. For
Yeah.
yeah, that's our motto in the Winglang product.
Oh yeah.
Planning is our motto. Great. So what are we? Let's close this thing for a second. Not to offend
Well, I
anyone.
think there were already some spoilers here.
Yep.
The big thing to talk about is that now there's documentation for um, types that you get from like Cloud or from any JSI libraries that you use. So yeah, it's not show.
Yeah, yeah.
I, okay, well, it should show for the other thing too.
No,
But
it does show. But
no,
what
it's
do you?
hiding it. If you go far to the right where it says Q in the completion, there should be like a little arrow that pops up if you mouse over
Okay,
like
nice. Oh, I
that.
didn't know this.
I think it's hiding it because your screen size.
Ooh,
But anyway, yeah.
nice.
So the completion is on, or the documentation is on Hover, and as well as like while you're doing completions.
Right.
Um, and now we show the information as well for the signature.
Right.
Like
Let's do something. The API is always complex, so let's take a look at it.
okay.
Let API equal, and then I do API dot get now.
Yeah, so this is the juicy stuff. So this is like I think when you first start using Wing before this was a huge pain point. Like, okay, let me go reference the docs to see what is what. So you have all the parameters here, you have their names, and you have the types, and you have the documentation for the parameter and for the whole type itself. Not only that, but like if you put a string in and you go to the next argument, it actually it'll update. It's okay. And you go to the next thing, and it highlights and changes the docs. I think the representation is still somewhat a work in progress, but all the information's there, so you shouldn't. You might be able to write full Wing programs without having to reference the doc site now, which is a super speed boost.
Right.
When writing things.
So I keep noticing that because I'm using this a lot. I'm doing like this thing. Do you have any plans to solve my cloud doc problem? Cloud doc.
Yes. I mean, I don't have a. I'm not working on it right now.
Okay, yeah.
but it's in the it's. I think it's either an issue or I mean I'm definitely aware of it. I think the main thing is like even the representation in the docs in that little doc needs work. It's there's been a lot of talk about it. With the team to kind of figure out how do we best represent these things. Like even I'm just hovering over some of them. Like you can see there's some ugly little bits, but the information's there, and so it's definitely a great start. Really happy with how this is going. A lot of credit to Alad actually implemented like the initial like adding the docs to be available, and then I just took that and sprinkled it in more places. Okay. So super nice. I should say, okay, so one of the features that is missing VS Code, in case anyone's interested, is if you go back to line 3, for example, and you like delete the parentheses part, like so go backspace 3 times, and then put the parentheses. You notice how it popped up that the signature help is what that's called. That little box that comes up. That's actually not a feature necessarily of the language server. That's actually the language server sends a command to the client saying, hey, you should probably open up your signature help thing if you have it. But not all clients may necessarily respond to the same exact message. Yeah. So it's not a very direct like call and response like the usual thing. So this is the kind of thing I'm talking about, like very minor. Like the data's there, but the client has to do a little work. So
it's more like an event-based thing. I'm notifying you that you can do this, but you can decide to kind of.
Yeah, it's literally like it says, hey, run this command. Like, and so VS Code has like a command system.
Yeah.
It's literally just saying, hey, run that.
Got it.
Yeah, which is it's definitely a little weird, but gets the job done. And that's like that's how you do it with this. So
awesome. So we have we have requests, and then we have vars, and then we can do get, and this is something helping here a lot in this thing. it's auto completion. This is awesome. I mean, it's kind of trivial when we think about this when we're coming, but there's a lot of work to here. And specifically, you mentioned this in the previous show. It wasn't the best show. Some key parts of the show were missing. Some key people. But you mentioned that in order to do this, is basically you have to always compile an incomplete program, which I think that's a nice. That's I mean, before, I mean, as you know, the product basically, we're looking at you people and say, what's taking you so long? So I was wondering what's taking you so long, but it makes a lot of sense when you mentioned that there's this complexity that you have to complete the actual syntax of the language, basically, to match. So that's awesome.
Yeah, it's a definitely a hard problem, especially like we're using tree sitter for our parsing, and it's it's a great tool, but like it's not we're not right. We didn't write it, so there's some gaps into how it handles things that we since we know how Wing works. Oh well, this should work, but then tree sitter doesn't know that quite as well. So a cool example that has happened in the last month, I'm pretty sure. If you go into the next line and do if API dot, and you'll see that it should show completions there.
Oh, nice. That's
so
nice.
This is hard. Then this is a hard problem because this happened at some point. I don't know when this was fixed, but it was fixed sometime. So but this is a hard problem because how it's actually, you look at a program, you're like, oh, it starts with an if. This must be an if statement that you're starting, but that's actually it's not. It's a non-trivial problem to say to kind of figure it out. So now we actually give you a proper error saying before it was oh, I don't know what happened and it explodes.
Right.
Now it's
so it would basically complete to the kind of the I don't know what happened, bring cloud, something like that, right?
Yeah, if you put bring true or if true, just put if true, it should tell you hey, you're missing a block. You need to put a block there. Yeah.
Nice.
Which is a better error than was there before, where it was just all red.
A lot of these are kind of we're solving specific private use cases, or this solves a lot of stuff. I mean, this example is true. It's you have to. Do you have to solve this specifically for this specific case in the code?
Most of them, I don't. It's really hard to find things that have just one case. I think so. In the case of the if statement, we have several. What's the term? Syntactic structures that are keyword, thing, and then block.
If let.
So if let I actually haven't tested if let. I think that was added around the same time, but if let might work. But then for loops as well.
Yeah.
If else is the similar thing. Try catch.
Yeah.
These are all they're all kind of the same. They're actually they all look kind of the same when you extract it out. So this fixing that fixed it for all those cases.
Got it. Okay, I understand. Awesome. So, and the last thing we have on this topic is diagnostic. What's the improvement of diagnostic from a technical perspective? I know a bunch of buzzwords. It took the JSification and put it in the LSP. Am I correct?
No. Yeah, I mean that's from the underlying side. That's from technically what happened, but from a user perspective, what you'll notice, what was happening before was that sometimes your ring program would fail, and you wouldn't have any red squigglies in your in your code or in your editor, which can still happen for in-flight errors or some other type of far runtime errors, but that should never happen for compiler errors. If your editor is there's no red in your thing, your program should compile. Right. That's just a given. So we had a problem where we were skipping a certain part of our compiler in the language server due to some concerns about performance / the fact that it actually wrote to the file system, and we were we don't want to do that every time you push a character. So through some changes internally, Chris handled the major change there, and I just kind of flipped the switch and turning it on. So now we actually run that phase where it does analysis of the capturing mechanism, the lifting mechanism. I'm not sure how much I will bother saying about that, but making sure that the permissions that you need for accessing the bucket or something. Making sure that all checks out and your everything works there. Previously, we cared about if you're trying to access a mutable pre-flight thing in flight. That's changed now recently, but we'll see. But that was an error that was happening all the time. and you wouldn't see it in the editor, and it would break your program, and you'd be confused. So, yeah, that's changed. That's changed now. I can't even think of an example, to be honest.
You guys, I mean, we just talked about this before. Because of this recent change, which we're not gonna, maybe we'll touch it next time. The kind of the classic example for this, basically, we took away from you. But but if you do think about the example, it's going to be interesting.
I mean, but the core idea that what the compiler runs and what VS Code runs are now one-to-one.
Right.
That's important. That's very important.
We still have an unsolved issue, I think. If I do a let b equal, if I do cloud.bucket and I do this 2 lines, and I'm going to save this.
Yeah.
This is not the compiler, but we have a kind of a synth problem, right? I mean, is that the right word? I mean,
yeah, it's I'm messing up something that I also it bugs me when that, because it's a confusing thing. A compilation does refer to what you're talking about. It includes the pre-flight execution of that. So yes, we were missing that because that is still too expensive. So
this is actually running this CDK, basically building the CDK construct tree, right? Is that correct?
It's building it depends on your target.
Okay.
So it's whatever but you could be using CDK for Terraform, CDK or AWS CDK, and those, they're not that slow. I mean, sometimes they are, but mostly they're just slow enough that where it's unacceptable.
Yeah.
For like per keystroke. So we'll figure out something for that maybe, but it's definitely for now we're accepting that difference.
Awesome. Great. Okay. Anything else you want to share with? Anything you want me to show? You've been excellent. I've been driving here and go to line 3. You were awesome, and I couldn't do your job. It's too confusing for me.
Well, luckily it's there's actually on the surface not a lot of things have not changed. Like you see the docs. The docs are where you mostly where you expect them to be.
Right.
That's kind of that's why it was pretty easy to show, because it should just show you when you expect to see them. I will say that this works for a JSI library, which is great because a lot of those, especially like CDKTF provider and AWS CDK are very well documented. So, so you should be able to see useful info from those.
Like something like that, right?
Yeah, I mean you'll have to install it.
I have to do it. Yeah, but most chances I have it. Have it? Oh no, I have this.
Oh, do AWS CDK then?
Yeah.
Why not?
And then AWS CDK.
You want to make a bucket?
Make a bucket.
Oh, I think also since the last month, I don't know, the performance improvements for this have gone through. I forget what's happened. It's been a while, right? This used to also be very slow.
AWS underscore. Who's talking? Do you hear someone talking? Underscore S3. Okay. New. Yeah. So do this. That is new. Right?
Yeah. So if you hover over bucket, it'll show you.
How? I'll compile to AWS CDK. Yeah, why don't you compile it to it? So.
Do those not have docs? Well, if you hover over, it's the arrow again. It's not showing you the docs again when you if you do b dot.
B dot. Oh, I see what you're saying. Send this, and then I can go into this thing and see. Yeah, awesome.
Okay, well, it is still missing stuff, but if you hover over, there's something. So, I mean, not everything has docs, but that's not always our fault. That's sometimes just the source library doesn't have docs for it.
Right.
So this applies to all that, which is, I mean, boom, a lot of documentation for free.
Amazing. Awesome, man. I think it's a good time to kind of clap and use your own Mark favorite kind of sound. So thank you, Mark. And thank you again, man, for doing this. And the next person on the show is going to be Bear, but we're gonna hear a little bit more of your song. So.
Alrighty.